Hi class, in today's lesson we're going to be looking at linear functions again. This time we're going to be taking an approach where if we're given a table of values like the one I have right here, then we can use this information to write our function rule out. So it's actually, the process isn't too bad. There's just, you just need to make sure that you follow the steps correctly. One of the first things we're going to do in this table is determine what the slope is. Now you're probably wondering, well, you got a bunch of different points here. How in the world are you going to figure that out? It's actually really easy to do. Just pick any 2 points that are in this table and then look at the delta y. So these are your y coordinates, and then compare that to the delta x, or your change in x. So just for ease here, let's just use the first 2 values to help us to make our comparisons on both sides. So if I was to look at the change in y over here, well, 4 minus 1 would give us 3. And then if I look at my delta x value over here on this side, well, 0 minus 1 gives me negative 1. Now, if you remember, to calculate your slope, what you would do, hang on, let me fix my camera, it's kind of falling down a little bit. There we go. So to find your slope, remember it's delta y over delta x, and you just plug in your numbers that we found. So delta y was 3, and then delta x was negative 1. So we get 3 over negative 1, or 3 divided by negative 1, which gives you a slope of negative 3. So that's how you find the slope given a table. So if you think about slope-intercept form, it looks like this right here. Y equals mx plus b, okay? So we already know our slope component, so y equals negative 3x plus b. But now we have to figure out the b value. We need to determine what the y-intercept is from this table of values. And the way you do that is actually very easy as well. All you need to do is pick one point, an ordered pair, from this table to plug in. And I tell you what, just to make things easy, let's pick the first point up here, 0, 4. So we're going to plug in the first point, 0, 4, into our function rule to help us to find our y-intercept. So let's do that. So our y coordinate is 4, so 4 equals negative 3 times the x coordinate, which is 0, plus b. Now what we're going to do is treat this like an equation. We're going to solve for b. Well, negative 3 times 0 cancels out, so 4 equals, oh look, 4 equals b. So we didn't even need to do much solving at all to figure out what our y-intercept would be for this function rule. So take a look at the 2 pieces of information we found. There's our slope, there's our intercept. Now we got both pieces of information that we need to where we can finally write our function rule out. So y equals negative 3x plus 4. And there you go. There is your solution. So that's not too bad at all. So as long as you follow those steps in order, find your slope first, then plug it in to slope-intercept form, and then solve by picking a point from the table and plugging it in, solve for b, then you can get your function rule every single time. Let's try this next problem out. And so this will be our practice problem for today, so you can try this problem out on your own. So all we're going to do here for this, again, is it's just a 2-step process. You're going to calculate your slope, you're going to calculate your y-intercept, and then plug that in to your slope-intercept form. So if you need to, you can pause the video right here and you could try this problem out on your own first, and then when you're done, hit play and compare to see if your work matches up with what I do. So let's get started. So first thing we're going to do is determine our delta y. And remember, it's subtracting. So -3 minus -2, which is -3 plus 2, which gives us -1. And then we're going to calculate our delta x value. So 0 minus 1 is -1 as well. Oh, okay. So m is equal to delta y over delta x, which is the same thing as -1 divided by -1. Oh, well, negative divided by negative is a positive, so our slope value is actually going to be positive. And if you remember, positive slopes mean they would be increasing lines. And if you look at your table, that actually makes sense, because as we increase in our x values, we see that our y value increases by 1 every single time. So we see that our math is consistent with the logic, the concept of this. So now that we've found our slope, let's set up our slope-intercept form. So y equals 1x plus b. Now remember, this 1 is not necessary in front of it, but I'm just going to leave it there just to make things a little easier in seeing the work for the problem. Let's pick a point to plug in from the table. Again, let's pick the first point because there's just some easier numbers to work with. So we're going to plug in 0, -3 into our function rule. So our y coordinate is -3, and that equals 1, and times x, which is 0, plus b. Oh, 1 times 0, that cancels out, so -3 is equal to b. Oh, look at that. So you probably noticed that there is a pattern in this, because if you look at these two examples that we've worked out up here, it looked like the first point in both of these tables, or where the x-coordinate was 0, is where we have our y-intercept. Oh, okay. Gotcha. So, we got both pieces of information. Now when we write our function rule out, y equals 1x plus -3 or -3. There you go. Now remember, it's not necessary to put this 1 in front of here. So even if you write your answer like this, y equals x minus 3, that's actually the more acceptable form right there. Because again, it's kind of silly to put the 1 in front of it because it's redundant. There's really no need in saying 1 times that number. So I hope you found this lesson to be helpful. I'll be sure to give you some practice problems for today that ties in with analyzing tables. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'm glad to help you out. Have a wonderful day.